Well, welcome viewers. I'm Dr. JWAU, theologist. I am completely gutted by what I'm seeing in the covert message being sent by the 2026 census through the deliberate, somebody in there, in the Australian Bureau of Statistics, has decided to remove Judaism from the primary category list of religion. Now, there's a covert, deliberate message being sent here. The controversy surrounding this incident has to be alarming given the situation that Australia is in relative to anti-Semitism, and the invisible language of this institutional lack of recognition is not just accidental. It has to be deliberate. There is a spirit running through these establishments and organisations that in one way or another are sending an anti-Semitic message. The controversy surrounding the Australian Census 2026 is about far more than the design of the government form. It raises a much deeper question. What message does a nation send when it stops naming one of its historic religious communities on one of its most important official documents? A census does more than collect information. It tells Australians who the nation officially recognises. Every category printed on the form represents visible recognition. Every category that is absent changes that message. To be named is to be publicly acknowledged. To no longer be named changes the relationship between the citizen and the state. I argue that the continued omission of Judaism from the census form in 2026, during a period of record levels of anti-Semitism in Australia, cannot simply be dismissed as an administrative decision. I believe it reflects a serious failure to understand how important public recognition is for a community facing absolute, manifest hostility. Recognition is not only about collecting accurate statistics, it is about openly acknowledging that every community has an equal place within the nation of Australia. This government speaks through its laws, but it also speaks through the design of their institutions, and the census is one of those institutions. This creates what I believe as to be a serious contradiction. The government publicly condemns anti-Semitism, promises to protect Jewish Australians, and describes anti-Jewish hatred as completely unacceptable. Yet the same government continues to use a census form that does not explicitly recognise Judaism as an equal religious choice. Regardless of the reason for that decision and whoever made it, who I'd like to know who that is, critics argue that the public message remains the same, and so do I. The responsibility for recognition of the Jewish community and Judaism in Australia has quietly shifted away from the institution and onto the individual. Jewish Australians are expected to restore their own visibility by writing themselves back onto the 2026 census form, and as far as I'm concerned, that is demoralising, humiliating, and anti-Semitic in nature. The concern is not simply about intention, although intention's perfectly clear here. It is about the message created by the decision itself and who made it. Government institutions communicate through actions as much as words. Critics argue that covert institutional anti-Semitism does not always appear through open hostility or obvious discrimination. It can also appear through repeated omissions, reduced visibility, symbolic downgrading, and institutional decisions that slowly weaken the public recognition of a vulnerable community while appearing administratively neutral. That's not true in Australia. This is blatant. The issue is not necessarily hatred. The issue is much more cunning than that. It's whether repeated institutional choices produce unequal recognition or no recognition at all, or recognition completely out of sufferance. My concern as an Australian First Nations Christian, Lebanese background, reaches beyond the Jewish community. Democracies are built on more than equal legal rights. They also depend upon every recognised community receiving equal public recognition from the institutions of the state. Recognition helps build trust, belonging, and confidence, and most of all, inclusion. Official documents, national ceremonies, public memories, memorials, and government institutions and establishments all communicate who belongs within Australia's shared national identity. And when one historic religious community is no longer explicitly recognised, I argue that the consequences extend beyond administration into the values of the nation's publicly expressed inclusion. I believe that Judaism has been demoralized. This is especially important because exclusion in modern democracies is rarely open or obvious, and this whole census form is much more cunning and conniving than that. There's an agenda, one way or another, being driven behind this, and it smells of anti-Semitism. Whoever's endorsed this decision needs to be accountable. Institutions seldom discriminate through direct statements. More often, critics argue exclusion develops through a series of decisions that appear reasonable when viewed individually, but gradually create a pattern of reduced recognition. And in this case, no recognition. And my concern is therefore not limited to a single census decision. It is about the cumulative effect of repeated institutional choices. Jewish Australians can still write Judaism onto the form, but critics argue, and I myself also, that this is no longer the same as the nation choosing to name them itself. Viewers viewed this way, the census in 2026 becomes more than a statistical survey. It becomes a reflection of how Australia has chosen to recognise the Jewish people. The controversy here asks whether equal citizenship is fully achieved if equal public recognition is no longer clearly visible. And this is deliberate. Critics argue that when, and I do too, governments strongly condemn anti-Semitism but continue to admit Judaism from one of the nation's most important official documents, an unavoidable tension emerges between the institutions and what they say and what they visibly communicate. And this visibly communicates, as far as I'm concerned, a severe serial pathological devaluation of the Jewish people in Australia. I mean, this is inexcusable. Whether intended or not, I argue that the decision weakens confidence, reduces visibility, and creates the perception that Jewish Australians are no longer being recognised with the same clarity as before, and this is becoming abhorrently obvious. My central thesis is therefore not that the census in 2026 of Australia alone proves institutional anti-Semitism, although it reeks of it. Rather, it argues that the continued omission of Judaism from explicit recognition during a period of widespread, manifest anti-Semitism has become a powerful symbol of what I see and many critics see as growing establishment and institutional indifference towards Jewish visibility in Australia. Democracies communicate not only through the words they speak, but also through the communities they choose to name. And how dare they not name Judaism in the Census 2026 list of what is your religion? This has sent a profound message from the establishment as to its lack of value for this community in Australia under such unprecedented anti-Semitic activity. Viewers, in closing, sometimes the strongest public message is found not in what appears on the page, but in what no longer appears on the page. And whilst I know the Jewish people, they would not ask for an apology, as an Australian watching this from a neutral perspective, I apologise to the Jewish people for this obvious, ongoing assault on who they are, what they believe, how they contribute and care. This is a profound abuse that has been sent at one of the most difficult times in Australia for Jewish people. And now this has become obvious that somebody in that establishment definitely is running an anti-Semitic agenda. I'm Dr. J.W. Ayub, theologist. I will stand fully accountable for this message. I've had enough. I cannot stand by and watch this blatant, covert undermining of the Jewish people in Australia. Enough is enough. We've had enough. Somebody's got to stand up and take accountability for this deliberate assassination of who the Jewish people are.